Have you ever stumbled across someone who completely defies logic, someone who doesn't match your preferences, who checks none of your boxes, and yet, against all reason, you can't stop thinking about them? No matter how much you rationalize, no matter how many times you tell yourself, this doesn't make sense, they remain lodged in your mind like a whisper you can't unhear. It's not a classic case of love at first sight, nor is it simple physical attraction. It's something else entirely. A vague, almost mystical jolt of awareness, as though something ancient within you quietly uttered, "This person. They mean something." And then the questions start flooding in. Why does this person confuse me so much? Why do they feel so familiar, even though I barely know them? There's a sense of déjà vu that isn't rooted in memory, but in something deeper, something more primal, something that feels almost spiritual. According to Carl Jung, these moments are far from random. He believed they are signals from the unconscious, whispers from a hidden realm inside you that holds the true architecture of your most meaningful connections. This realm doesn't follow logic. It operates through symbols, patterns, instincts, and ancient blueprints, what Jung called the collective unconscious. Jung believed that love, real love, doesn't emerge from the intellect. It arises from a deep, resonant chord struck between two inner worlds. When your soul hears the echo of another, it doesn't analyze. It simply responds. The sensation is raw, undeniable, and oddly familiar, as if you're waking up to something you've always known but never consciously understood. So then, how can you recognize if someone is your true love? How do you distinguish a fleeting craving from a profound connection that feels destined? What signs help us decipher whether we're encountering a mere crush or a soul-deep bond crafted by forces we cannot see? Carl Jung left us clues, subtle yet powerful insights, like a spiritual rad map guiding us to those rare connections that truly matter. Number 1. What is true love? Jung's idea of true love isn't about surface compatibility or checking off shared interests on a dating profile. It's not about being perfectly matched according to societal ideals. True love, for Jung, is something sacred, an encounter between two inner universes, a mystical resonance that goes far beyond appearance or logic. He called it the voice of the unconscious, a part of you untouched by reason but uncannily precise in knowing what is authentic and real. In Jung's framework, we all carry within us what he termed archetypes, universal images and roles deeply embedded in the collective unconscious. These are the timeless figures: the mother, the father, the lover, the child, the wise elder, the betrayer. And when we fall in love, we don't always fall for the actual person in front of us. Often we fall for the archetype they unknowingly represent. In other words, what we're really drawn to is the reflection of an unconscious image, something symbolic that resonates with our own psyche. For instance, you may find yourself captivated by someone who exudes strength and calm. They make you feel protected. The reason for this pull might not be who they are, but what they awaken in you. Perhaps the lover archetype you've long buried. Similarly, if you've endured emotional wounds from childhood, like abandonment, you might repeatedly fall for emotionally distant partners, unconsciously seeking to rewrite your past through your present attachment. Jung referred to this powerful but deceptive force as projection. He cautioned that projection is a common but illusory part of love. We don't see the other person clearly. We see them as a mirror of our unhealed wounds, unmet needs, or romanticized fantasies. Real love, however, begins the moment we start to pull back that projection, when we stop projecting what we want to see and begin to view the other as a full, complex human being, not an archetype or a fantasy. That's when love becomes transformational. To Jung, love isn't just an emotional experience, it's a spiritual awakening. A mirror that reflects not only the beauty of the other, but also the entire landscape of yourself. Your light and your shadow. Your brilliance and your pain. It shows you everything. the traits you're proud of, and the parts you've long suppressed, the talent you shine with, and the insecurities you've buried deep. And let's be honest, it's not always a pleasant revelation. It can shake you, unravel you, make you question who you are. But in that very disruption lies truth, and only truth has the power to heal. Imagine this. You're in a relationship where you feel cared for and protected. Everything seems stable, but over time you realize you're dimming your own light. You stop doing the things you love, you suppress your passions, you become a smaller version of yourself, just to maintain peace or avoid the fear of being abandoned. John would argue, that's not love. That's self-bargaining. That's fear masquerading as affection. Real love doesn't make you shrink. It encourages you to grow. It nourishes your becoming, not your erasure. Now, imagine the opposite. You meet someone who turns your entire world inside out. Their presence agitates something in you. You feel unsure, exposed, even irritated, but undeniably alive. You're forced to confront your own patterns, values, and past. This chaos, this friction, this emotional earthquake, that's the sign. That person didn't enter your life to soothe you. They came to awaken you. Their presence isn't a lullaby, it's a thunderclap. Because true love, as Jung saw it, was never about comfort. It was always about consciousness. He called it individuation, the process of becoming your fullest self, a journey where love acts not as a hiding place, but as a furnace, a refining fire that shapes your spirit, strips away your illusions, and reveals your most authentic essence. And in that journey, the other person is never just your escape. They are your mirror, your fire, your catalyst for awakening, someone who doesn't simply offer you comfort, but demands your truth. And for that reason, true love doesn't always feel good, but it feels right. Right, in a way that defies explanation, in a way that bypasses thought and goes straight into the bones, into the breath, into something older than memory. It's not about logic or perfection, it's about knowing, deep in your gut, that this person, despite all their flaws, is helping you connect with something raw, something sacred, something no one else has ever touched within you before. They're not your ideal, they're not your fantasy, but they are inexplicably it. Carl Jung never gave us a formula to chase love. He didn't offer a step-by-step guide or promise a soulmate ritual. Instead, he handed us a mirror, a way to recognize love when it appears. And often, it doesn't arrive with fireworks or clarity. It arrives like a whisper in the dark, requiring presence, not pursuit. And the first, most vital lesson he left us is this. True love does not come from reason. It arises from a deep resonance, an invisible hum between two unconscious minds, a vibration between souls that doesn't ask for permission or explanation. When that moment strikes, you no longer need to question, is this the one? Something inside you already knows, not through logic, but through a knowing so old and intimate it's impossible to describe. But recognizing this kind of love isn't always easy. It's not loud. It doesn't shout from the rooftops or fit into neat, understandable patterns. It doesn't make a list of pros and cons. It doesn't explain itself in bullet points or charming conversations. Instead, it whispers. It speaks in quiet, powerful signals, through intuition, subtle gestures, and deep inner knowing, through goosebumps when no wind blows, through silence that feels louder than words. It moves in the stillness of your soul, like a current running just beneath the surface. So how do you really know when you're standing in front of true love? The truth is, it's not about analyzing the other person. It's about listening to yourself, tuning in to the quiet movements within your own heart when something extraordinary unfolds in their presence. What follows are 7 essential signs, not for judging others, but for learning to hear that still, sacred voice inside you. the one that speaks when love arrives. If you're open and ready to explore these deeper truths with me, type in the comments, "I'm ready." Let's begin. Number 2. 7 signs this is true love. Sign 1. The feeling of recognizing a familiar soul. Have you ever met someone just once, briefly, and yet something shifted inside you? Outwardly, everything was normal. No dramatic moment, no lightning bolt, but internally, something stirred. A quiet, almost haunting feeling, like you just found a piece of your soul that had been missing all along. It's not because they're your type. It's not that they're attractive or impressive. It's something deeper, like hearing a song you didn't know you'd forgotten, but instantly remember. It's a familiarity that defies reason. Not born from experience, but from something else. Something ancient, a spark that feels more like a memory than a moment. Carl Jung called this your unconscious responding. Not to the person necessarily, but to the soul they carry. A soul that mirrors something profound within you, not because they resemble you, but because they awaken something that's been long asleep. It could be a soft, nurturing energy you've rejected all your life, or a wild, untamed part of you that society pressured you to suppress. Jung gave names to these energies: anima, the inner feminine in men, and animus, the inner masculine in women. They're not just roles, they are archetypes, primal forces stored deep within your psyche. And when you meet someone who activates your anima or animus, it's not just a crush, it's a spiritual mirror. You see a version of yourself through them, one you've perhaps never allowed yourself to live. Imagine this. You're someone who thrives on structure, control, and careful planning. You live by logic, but then, out of nowhere, you meet someone who lives by emotion. They move like the wind, intuitive, spontaneous, unbound by routine. Everything about them contradicts your nature, and yet, you're drawn to them like a magnet. You can't stop watching them. You feel like you've known them forever, even though you just met. There's something in their eyes, a familiarity, a recognition, as though they hold a missing part of your inner world. They don't complete you like a puzzle piece, they awaken you. They stir the places you've neglected, feared, or disowned. And that awakening, that's the first sign of true love, according to Jung. It's not about shared hobbies or compatible goals. It's about resonance. That unexplainable hum when two souls recognize each other in silence. It's not always sweet. In fact, it can be incredibly disorienting. Because what you recognize in them might not be the safe or lovely part of love. It might be the part you've tried to run from, the shadow, the longing, the fear. And when that happens, the natural reaction is to retreat, to convince yourself this can't be real, because it feels too intense, too unfamiliar. But Jung left us a warning. Don't mistake fear for error. Sometimes, the souls that make us tremble aren't meant to harm us. They are the ones who hold a mirror to our hidden truth. They rattle us not because they're wrong, but because they're echoing something we're not quite ready to face. Some souls make you tremble because they're saying exactly what you're not yet ready to hear. Sign 2. They awaken your shadow. But there's something vital you must understand. Not every soul that resonates with yours will bring peace or comfort. Sometimes the person who seems to mirror your essence most deeply is also the one who unsettles you the most. They might confuse you, provoke you, or even hurt you, not out of malice, but because they reflect parts of yourself that you've tried to bury. That recognition, the one that shakes you, isn't always about love and light. It can come from the shadows, from the pieces of your inner world that have long been denied. Carl Jung called this hidden territory the shadow, the repressed aspects of your personality you don't want to admit exist, the parts of you that have been pushed away, suppressed, judged, or covered in shame. But here's the deeper truth, the part that often surprises people. The shadow isn't evil. It's simply the side of you no one taught you how to love. It's not the enemy, it's the forgotten child in the basement of your soul, still waiting to be seen. And in a strange twist of fate, true love is almost always intertwined with the shadow. You'll know it's happening when you meet someone who captivates you, yet simultaneously makes you want to flee. They pull you in with a force you can't explain, but being around them also brings out feelings you thought you had long outgrown. Feelings of jealousy, insecurity, or abandonment. They might not say anything cruel. In fact, they may mean well, but somehow their presence exposes the most fragile, hidden parts of you. And you may wonder, why does this person touch the most vulnerable corner of my heart? Why do I feel so raw in front of them? According to Jung, it's because they are unconsciously activating your shadow. They are acting as a mirror, not just reflecting the parts of you that are polished and lovable, but also the wounded parts you keep hidden, the parts you're afraid to look at. And if the love is real, if it's more than projection or fantasy, it will require you to face those parts. Jung once wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." That means healing doesn't come from pretending to be whole. It comes from acknowledging the fractures within. And love, true love, will often be the thing that cracks you open just enough to see what's inside. The person who truly loves you won't let you hide behind your masks. They won't settle for your performance. They'll draw out your shadows, not to harm you, but to free you. Like you. Think about those past relationships that brought you pain. Not because the other person was cruel or malicious, but because they stirred something deep. They made you feel unworthy, fragile, lost. You might have thought you were failing. But Jung would say, those people were revealing wounds that had never truly healed. And that's not failure. That's an invitation, a rare opportunity to integrate your shadow, to embrace the parts of yourself you've always rejected, and finally, bring them into the light. So many people believe that true love is supposed to be gentle, effortless, and constantly affirming. But Jung said something else entirely. Wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being, but by integration of the contraries. In other words, true love, the kind that transforms you, isn't always soft. Sometimes it's sharp. Sometimes it's uncomfortable, but it always moves you closer to wholeness. It doesn't drag you into suffering for the sake of it. It pulls your shadow into the light so you can be liberated. The person who loves you in this way isn't there to soothe every pain. They're not your escape. They are your mirror, your awakener, your guide. They challenge your limits. They push you out of the safe walls you've built. They make you examine who you've become and who you've been afraid to be. So if you're with someone who makes you feel both longing and fear, love and discomfort, don't be too quick to run. It might not be a sign that something is wrong. It might be a sign that you've just stepped into something real. You may not be meeting danger, you may be meeting destiny. Sign 3, they energize you. It's true, real love can stir up your shadow. And yes, that might plunge you into emotional chaos. But Carl Jung never claimed that true love should equal constant suffering. Quite the opposite. In fact, he emphasized that if a person is truly right for you, they won't drain your spirit. Instead, they'll energize you. They'll challenge you, but they'll also uplift you. After the storm of initial confusion and inner confrontation, you begin to notice something different. A new kind of vitality. Not a reckless thrill or shallow excitement, but a quiet, enduring strength. A grounded energy that steadies you, like a deep breath after a long silence. They don't take from you. They remind you who you are. Too often, people believe that love must be earned through sacrifice, through constant effort, or through enduring endless obstacles. But Jung would stop you right there. That kind of love is often fear wearing a mask. He said clearly, the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. True love isn't about losing yourself. It's about becoming more of who you really are. It transforms you in a way that expands you, not shrinks you. It doesn't ask you to perform or pretend. It allows you to rest, to breathe, to be real. Ask yourself, when I'm with this person, do I feel like I'm walking on eggshells? Or do I feel like I can exhale? Do I feel pressure to be perfect? Or am I allowed to be messy, vulnerable, fully human? Some relationships exhaust you. You talk for hours and afterward you feel depleted. There's no major argument, no toxic words, but something about the energy leaves you empty. You find yourself constantly trying to maintain the connection, making tiny sacrifices that slowly erase your sense of self. And deep down, you know, I'm fading in this relationship. I'm not myself anymore. But with the right person, even the silence feels full. Even the disagreements feel safe. Even your tears feel held, not judged. They don't demand that you always be strong. They give you room to fall apart and stay with you anyway. They don't require you to be flawless. They value the parts of you that are still growing. That kind of presence turns you inward, not to hide, but to awaken. They don't fall in love with your image. They fall in love with your essence, the real energy inside you, even when you've forgotten it yourself. And when that kind of love enters your life, you'll know, because love won't feel like a battle anymore. It will feel like a return. Sign 4. You feel a shared purpose with them. A person who energizes you instead of draining you is already a powerful sign of deep connection. But according to Carl Jung, true love doesn't end with comfort. It dares to go much further. It doesn't settle in ease. It expands into purpose. True love becomes the soil where two individuals can grow, not by losing themselves in one another, not by becoming dependent or tangled, but by standing strong in their own individuality, walking side by side, two paths that run parallel toward a common, meaningful horizon. Jung once said, "Every human life contains a potential. If that potential is not fulfilled, then that life was wasted." To him, each person is not just a partner in romance, but a universe in their own right, a microcosm with a unique identity, energy, and spiritual calling. True love, in its most authentic form, doesn't erase this uniqueness. Instead, it highlights it, enriches it, and magnifies it. Rather than consuming each other, real partners amplify each other. Together, they create a shared energetic space where both individuals are not only able to grow, but to serve a purpose beyond themselves. Something sacred, something lasting. You'll know you're in this kind of rare and meaningful relationship when you can say with clarity, "I haven't lost myself by loving this person. If anything, I've found more of who I am." And even more. I'm walking beside them, not to be absorbed, but to co-create something bigger than us both. It's not about blending identities until nothing is distinct. It's not about shrinking to fit into someone else's dream or silencing your voice to preserve harmony. Instead, it's about standing tall, two complete beings, each with their own values, passions, and path, who choose freely and consciously to walk together. Because while they could each walk alone, they don't want to. The connection isn't forced, it's chosen. The shared direction feels sacred. For instance, perhaps you're deeply passionate about healing, inner work, and the science of the soul. Your partner may be drawn to creativity, emotional expression, and spiritual freedom. On the surface, your interests seem different, yet you both value the same core truth: liberating the human spirit from inner chains, illusions, and inherited pain. When you come together, neither person sacrifices their dream. On the contrary, their vision fuels yours. Their growth inspires your own. You remain distinct, but your purposes align like two rivers flowing toward the same ocean. Jung would describe this not merely as chemistry, but as a symbolic convergence of souls, a sacred bond, not rooted in possession or surface attraction, but in shared mission, inner recognition, and a higher calling. You look at each other and quietly feel, we're not just building something for ourselves. we're building something that matters. And the most crucial truth here is this. This shared growth is not separate from love. It is love. Because when you love someone deeply, you don't try to clip their wings. You want them to rise, to soar. You want to see them become their fullest self, even if it leads them into unknown territory. And when they love you, they don't cage you in fear. They encourage you, cheer you on, and walk beside you. Not to control, but to witness your unfolding. You become keepers of each other's inner fire, not with demands, not with manipulation, but with faith, with trust, with sacred space. True love, in Jung's vision, was never about doing everything together or fusing into one identity. It was about two awakened, evolving souls walking their own paths, yet sharing a single rhythm, a shared heartbeat, a collective pulse of becoming. It's not about luck. It's not about coincidence. It's destiny, summoned from the deepest parts of the unconscious. Sign 5. Time and space seem to disappear. When two people can grow in their individuality while aligning in direction, love enters its most luminous form, what Jung called a deeper layer of awakening. But beyond this shared purpose lies something even more mysterious, something almost supernatural. Jung believed there was another sign, subtler and harder to grasp, a phenomenon that signals not just that you're in love, but that love itself is guiding you. This phenomenon is synchronicity, those strange, meaningful coincidences that seem to defy logic. Have you ever asked yourself, why did I meet this person at exactly that moment in my life? Or, of all the places, why did we sit next to each other in a near-empty cafe? Why do they linger in your mind with such intensity? Jung would tell you this is not chance. It's not random. It's the language of the collective unconscious, a form of cosmic intelligence working behind the veil, gently nudging you toward your path, your truth, and yes, your person. As Jung beautifully wrote, synchronicity is an ever-present reality for those who have eyes to see. When you meet someone and suddenly time seems to slow, when the world around you fades into the background and all that remains is the stillness between you, this is no ordinary moment. It's your unconscious, recognizing something profound, something ancient, something that goes far beyond logic. Imagine, you miss your usual bus, and at first, it's just a small inconvenience. But that delay brings you to a quiet place where you unexpectedly meet them. Or you're at a personal crossroads, unsure of your direction, and they appear, not to fix your problems, but to ignite a feeling, a forgotten memory, or an intuitive spark that changes everything. These people rarely show up during periods of stability. They tend to arrive during transitions, when you're asking deeper questions, when your spirit is restless, when you're ready to wake up. They don't come to save you. I come to remind you who you are. And what seems like a meaningless moment, a missed train, a glance across the street, a shared elevator ride, suddenly feels weighted with emotion. The time, the place, the details. They echo with a whisper from the universe. This was arranged. Pay attention. Not every coincidence is fate. But when your unconscious stirs, when time seems to pause, when someone enters your life just as you begin to remember who you truly are, that's not random anymore. Sign 6. They inspire you to be more authentically yourself. If synchronicity is fate knocking on your door, then the feeling of belonging is what happens when you walk through and suddenly realize your soul has already been there. It's as if your spirit breathes a sigh of recognition, not because of logic, but because of something ancient and unspoken. Carl Jung often said that we each carry unconscious archetypes, timeless psychic imprints of the mother, father, lover, child, teacher. These aren't roles we learn, but forces we inherit, deep in our collective mind. And when you meet someone who awakens one of those key archetypes, It's as if a quiet echo from the past rings in your chest. Your soul recognizes something far more familiar than anything you've ever consciously touched or studied. Jung wrote, "We meet ourselves time and again in 1,000 disguises on the path of life. And sometimes that meeting with yourself happens not through isolation or meditation, but through another human being. Not because they look like you, not because they reflect your habits or ease your loneliness, but simply because, with them, you no longer feel the need to pretend. You don't have to shrink your energy or second-guess your words. You don't need to perform to earn affection. You can simply be, and that is enough." Have you ever experienced that? A connection so natural that words become optional, sitting side by side, perhaps saying very little, yet sensing that the space between you has transformed into something sacred, a silent sanctuary where every layer of who you are feels protected and welcomed. Even the fragile parts, even the bruised, awkward, unfinished corners of your being, that isn't just comfort, that's not mere compatibility, that is something far deeper, a rootedness that anchors your soul in another without making you lose your own ground. Jung might say, this isn't mere feeling, it's a resonance, a soul-to-soul vibration that reaches beyond time, beyond surface chemistry, to a place where memory lives without words or calendars. In true love, this person won't run from their shadow, nor ask you to hide yours. Instead, they embrace it as an inseparable part of what makes you real. And in that embrace, you're not merely accepted, you are seen, understood, and most importantly, invited to stay. Not in a house, not in a routine, but in a space of the soul, where every part of you, from the past, the now, and what's yet to come, is welcomed with open arms. This feeling, it cannot be faked, and it cannot be fabricated with clever words. No dating app algorithm can describe it, because it isn't about matching hobbies or lifestyle. It's about soul harmony, an invisible thread that ties you together without force. And if you've ever met someone who makes you exhale, not because they rescued you, but because for the first time you could let your armor fall to the floor, then trust that moment. Sign 7. They force you to choose to love for real or keep living a lie. After all the intense emotions, the inexplicable synchronicities, the sacred moments of feeling deeply seen and touched at your core, there comes a turning point, a moment of reckoning. You must decide, will you love for real or retreat back into the shadows of comfort and illusion? Carl Jung never dressed love up in fantasy. For him, true love wasn't a fairy tale, it was confrontation. Not just with the other person, but with your own soul. Because truth, in its purest form, always demands a cost. Not the cost of love itself, but of the masks we wear, the roles we cling to, and the relationships that serve our ego but starve our spirit. Jung once wrote, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their soul. And the person truly meant for you? They won't let you hide anymore. They don't enter your life so you can stay in denial. They don't allow you to keep rehearsing the same old play. They call out your real self, the one behind the smile, the one beyond the polished script, and they make it impossible to keep faking it." Then comes the real question. If you want them in your life, can you dare to become the most honest version of who you are? No more white lies to keep the peace. No more clinging to relationships that exhaust your spirit but feed your social image. You must let go. But let go of what? Let go of those who only love your highlight reel, the parts of you that succeed, shine, or entertain. Let go of the lifestyle that may appear glamorous but feels hollow inside. Let go of the fear that being your true self means ending up alone. This is the crossroads where love transforms from mere emotion to sacred truth. And if you're brave enough to step into that truth, you're not only choosing to love another, you are, at last, choosing to love yourself. Jung would call this the final confrontation, ego versus essence. And true love? It doesn't wait for you in shallow waters. It waits in the deep. It waits where illusions dissolve and raw, radical honesty begins. That person, They may not stay if you're not ready. They're not here to chase you. But if you choose truth, that love won't just change your relationship. It will forever change who you are. But here's the catch. Not everything that makes you tremble, lose control, or feel obsessively drawn is true love. Intensity is not always proof of authenticity. Sometimes it's just the voice of an old wound crying out to be healed. Number 3, a wake-up call from Jung. There is a kind of love that leaves you breathless, utterly intoxicated, wrapped in obsession. When this person is near, it's as if your entire being catches fire, and when they walk away, something inside you collapses. You don't just miss them. You feel hollow, like a part of you has been ripped away. It's not mere longing, it's a raw, aching severance. The kind of love that steals your sleep, rattles your nerves, and drives you to abandon your own needs just to cling to their presence for one more moment. It's fierce, it's consuming, it feels irresistible. But Carl Jung warns us, be cautious. Just because something moves you deeply doesn't mean it's real love. He called this powerful pull excessive projection, a psychological phenomenon where you stop seeing the other person for who they are and instead assign them the role of everything you've ever wanted, everything you've ever missed, everything that once hurt you and was left unresolved. And in doing so, you don't fall in love with them, you fall in love with a projection of your own unconscious longing. This is where things get dangerous, because when that illusion shatters, and it always does, you feel betrayed. Not because they changed, not because they were cruel, but because they couldn't live up to the fantasy your wounds created. You didn't lose a soulmate. You lost an illusion, and sometimes that can hurt even more. Pause and reflect. Have you ever been swept away by a connection so powerful, so magnetic, that you lost your sense of self? That's not uncommon, and bringing awareness to it, naming it for what it was, is often the first step toward awakening. Jung observed this in countless people, caught in what he called emotional codependency, relationships where love becomes tangled with chaos, where intense longing masks a need to be rescued, where suffering gets romanticized and mistaken for depth. On the outside, these relationships burn bright, passion, drama, obsession. But beneath the flames, you slowly begin to vanish. You bend yourself to keep the other person happy. You start adjusting your truth, your values, even your boundaries, just to keep them close. You endure pain and convince yourself that love means accepting everything, even what harms you. But what if that isn't love at all? What if it's just the unconscious using another person as a stage for unresolved pain? Imagine a couple that feels an overwhelming connection the first time they meet. It's immediate, intense, electric. Within days, they've merged completely, sharing everything, finishing each other's sentences, spending every waking moment together. But within weeks or months, the fire starts to burn too hot. The same passion that once fused them now fuels explosive arguments. One partner becomes controlling, the other pulls away in silence. They're in pain, but they're addicted to each other. They can't walk away. Jung would say, this isn't love. This is the unconscious trying to free itself through projection. Real love doesn't make you disappear. It brings you back to yourself. It can still be powerful. It can still be transformative, but it won't destabilize you. It won't leave you lost in a storm of fear, need, and doubt. Jung warned that many people are addicted not to love, but to stimulation, to the emotional high of feeling wanted, pursued, overwhelmed. It feels like life, but it's not awareness, it's just noise. If you continue chasing those dramatic, all-consuming connections, you'll keep missing the quiet truth of genuine love. True love doesn't emerge from emptiness, it grows from wholeness. Yes, a relationship may feel like it touches your soul, but ask yourself, what's the cost? If you're constantly exhausted, if you must perform to be accepted, if your core values start to erode beneath the weight of staying, then be honest. That's not love. It's your own unconscious calling out for healing. Real love can still be fierce, It can shake your world, but it won't destroy you. It will expand you. It will ground you. It will offer clarity, not confusion. And even in your most vulnerable transformation, you will still feel rooted in yourself. You won't be twisting or shrinking just to keep someone by your side. So Jung urges us, stay awake. Don't let passion blind you. Don't confuse intensity with truth. Ask yourself, what is this love doing to me? Is it guiding me toward growth, or is it dragging me further from my soul? The answer doesn't lie in fireworks or emotional chaos. It lies in how you feel afterward. Do you return to yourself more whole, more clear, more at peace? Or do you feel like you're slowly fading, trading away the pieces of your spirit just to avoid being alone? Because in the end, if you feel clearer, freer, and more deeply connected to your truth, that is love. But if you feel like you're disappearing, if love becomes a battlefield where you constantly sacrifice your voice, your values, and your peace, then no matter how deeply you care, you are not in love, you are in self-abandonment. Number 4, the lesson of self-love. After all the signs, the resonance, and the seemingly faded connections, Carl Jung brings us back to one undeniable truth. You cannot truly recognize or attract real love unless you've genuinely learned to love yourself. This isn't just a feel-good quote, fit for a poster or an Instagram caption. It's not wishful thinking. It is, in fact, a profound and essential psychological law. If you cannot learn to embrace both the luminous and the shadowy aspects within you, your strengths and your flaws, you will inevitably search for love as a substitute, as compensation, instead of as shared presence. Jung observed that most heartbreaks don't originate from meeting the wrong person. Rather, they begin when we enter love still estranged from who we truly are. You long to be seen, completely, honestly, but resist the difficult task of seeing yourself. You crave to be loved entirely, yet cannot bring yourself to love the unpolished, wounded parts of your own being. So, unconsciously, you hand your heart to someone else with a quiet, unspoken plea. Please love me the way I've never been able to love myself. But no one, no matter how kind or generous, can carry that burden forever. They may lift you in fleeting moments, soothe old pain, even awaken pieces of your soul long forgotten. But they cannot fix what you refuse to face within. And when those familiar feelings of abandonment or inadequacy rise up again, Jung would gently but firmly ask you to look inward and reflect. Have I truly done that for myself? To Jung, self-love was about repeating affirmations or declaring, I deserve better. It was far deeper. Self-love in its truest form is the brave and often painful journey of accepting your entire being, including the hidden shame, the childish impulses, the parts you'd rather forget. As Jung once said, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. But when you do, when you can sit with your own shadow without running, you no longer need another person to fill your emptiness. You begin to understand that love doesn't arrive to complete you. It comes as an overflow of the wholeness you found within. This is why Jung placed individuation, the becoming of one's true self, at the center of human growth. Only once you've truly met yourself can you see others clearly, without projecting your wounds onto them. You won't love in order to escape loneliness. Love becomes a natural expression of an inner life that is already rooted, already in balance. True love doesn't begin with the other. It begins the moment you stand before a mirror and stop hiding. You stop editing your reflection. You breathe and say, I'm here, I see you, and I accept all of it. When you love yourself at that level, anyone who enters your life no longer needs to be your rescuer. They become a companion, not a crutch. No one on this earth, not a friend, not a teacher, not even a soulmate, can answer the question for you. Is this person my true love? There is no magical test, no formula, no guarantee. But there is something more powerful, a whisper within. That quiet, steady inner knowing. Jung knew this. He didn't offer answers. He offered a mirror so you could finally see yourself reflected in the relationships you create. And now, not when your heart is breaking later, but now. Pause. Take a breath. Ask yourself honestly, am I loving from truth, or am I just afraid to be alone? It's a simple question, but it pierces through excuses, bypasses stories, and touches the very core of your being. So many people enter relationships not because they're ready to give love, but because they cannot tolerate the silence of being with themselves. They fear the void, the echo of being unseen. They fear vanishing in their own lives. And so when someone shows them attention, they label it destiny. But how can you offer genuine love to anyone if you are still using them as protection against your inner emptiness? Jung might ask, if this person disappeared tomorrow, would you still feel whole, or are you clinging to them as a way to avoid facing your own unfinished places? If you answer that with honesty, a deeper question often follows. Does this person help you grow, or are they making you shrink a little more each day? Someone who truly loves you doesn't expect perfection. They don't demand that you become someone else. But their love naturally inspires you to become more, not because you're broken, but because you're safe enough to expand. And if, on the contrary, you find yourself silencing your dreams, muting your opinions, adjusting your behavior just to keep the peace, then know this: you're not loving, you're contracting. You're folding in on yourself just to survive the illusion of harmony. The cruelest part, you might not even realize it's happening until one day you look in the mirror and barely recognize who you've become. Jung once warned, a relationship can become like a warped mirror. You walk in thinking it's love, but walk out having lost the image of your real self. When that happens, step back, ask yourself, am I changing because I'm evolving, or because I'm slowly disappearing? And finally, perhaps the most important question of all, am I denying the voice within me? You know the voice I mean. It isn't fear, it's not indecision. It's the quiet, grounded intuition that once whispered, this isn't right. Or maybe, this person matters more than I'm admitting. But you ignored it. Why? Because logic interrupted. Because the world had opinions. Because your friends said they were good for you. But here's the truth. You can fool everyone but yourself. You might silence that inner voice for a while, bury it under noise, distraction, or performance. But it doesn't vanish. It waits. And one day, when you least expect it, it returns, asking to be heard again. Carl Jung believed that every soul instinctively knows its way home. The challenge? We forget how to listen. We get so busy pretending, performing, pleasing, that we lose the map. So, if you're in love right now, or waiting or holding on to something that feels vague but heavy, stop chasing the question, do they love me? Ask instead, am I being true to myself? Because only when you stand in your truth will the answers about love become clear. No need to overthink, no need to chase signs, just radical, unshakable honesty. And for Jung, that is where love begins, not with another person, but with the right kind of love for yourself. In Jung's view, love was never a fantasy ending. It was never a cozy landing place. It was a doorway, an entry point into the wild, uncharted terrain of the soul, where reason dims, where no maps exist, where the idea of right person, right time becomes meaningless, and all that's left is you, carrying every wound, every longing, every shadow and every light, walking through the mist, guided only by instinct, as if returning to an ancient home you've never stepped foot in, but somehow always known. Yet somehow know the person you're thinking of now may not be perfect, may not be ideal, may not match any list in your mind. But if they make you pause, begin an honest dialogue with your inner world. Don't turn away too soon, because sometimes true love doesn't arrive with a sweet song. It comes as a quiet knock in the middle of the night. True love is not the dream you chase. It's the reality you must be brave enough to enter. Like seeing yourself in a still, clear lake. You don't just see the other person, you see your soul in motion. And if in some moment your heart stirs for no obvious reason, just because of a gaze, a phrase, a presence that makes you feel deeply real, then maybe, just maybe, love has already knocked